So here we are again, um, late night, insomniac, almost in bed kind of thoughts that just cannot be left without being properly documented for posterity's sake. So here's the thought of the day, or of the night to be more precise, or of the next day, because it's practically the next day already. I've been reflecting on this drive, this obsession with going deeper, um, intellectually, contemplatively, spiritually, just going deeper, going into the as deep as fundamental as you can go. Especially, like I remember being during my undergraduate years, I would look for the system or look for the what would get me like the most, like, well, basically what could be the most mind-breaking kind of alien form of experience through engaging with books, theories, philosophy, um, psychedelics occasionally. And I would get to a point, I remember, where I entered this weird mode where like I would get this kind of experience of, like, when you encounter something so fundamental as a kind of paradigmatic shift in your worldview that basically you cannot go back, this irreversible process, like, and you remember exactly what is going on. I would have that every day for a few months, like complete kind of insight maximization, and that just fried me for a little bit, to the point where I got into bouts of derealization, groundlessness. I wasn't able to really materialize, and later on I realized that there's a huge distance between these very fundamental insights and material agency. Here's the thing: I would think, oh, I'm look how much better, how much superior I am, because I know all of this stuff and have these insights and I have this wisdom. Let's change the light a little bit to be a bit more dramatic right now. And so basically, there's two ways, there's two directions of that you can take. You can go into that kind of vertical direction, like all the way up, where you reach in these high points of understanding, or you can go deep down and have like deep material effect in the world and leave a lot of action. And there's levels between. Actually, Incognita Substack has a great article where they talk about power, levels of power, and there's a level of just mere, like the most fundamental is that of mere articulation, just like things that exist and that are even possible to exist, playing with reality itself. And there's like philosophers, fiction writers, spiritual innovators. This is what you see, this like articulating, it's is a work of articulation, basically, to bring completely new things in the world. This is the most like powerful function of language and word. It's an emitting signal that is genuinely new. And then there's dealing with all the other side, which is just like dealing with, like, deep action, being in the world, execution, just like hands-on. And this is where you basically have really direct power over your environment, over your world, but it's limited in scope. It's very local. So there's a lot of agency in material manipulation, in doing things, in being very capable, but its scope is low. And then this levels a little bit above, where you can have effect on the tactics, the whole way of organizing of how things are, or of the mere ways of operation, the laws, the protocols, the norms that are functioning, and you're able to define them. And this is your environment then. It's not just a local setting, it's just a little bit more scaled up. And then as you go up, the scope extends and you have the whole world. And the mere notion of what reality is, and that's what you're playing with. So you can play with the really small and direct, or you can play with the really big and intangible, and this levels between. Here's the thing: the ones that are entering into positions of authority, status, and legitimacy are the ones that are in this lower levels of agency, a little bit above the completest material, crafty kind of agency that we can have on the world, and just operate on that, but then operate within a certain kind of constraints that have been already set. In a kind of game, in a kind of playing field, whose rules are kind of known, which is navigatable, where there's legibility. Let's take our cultural obsession with CEOs and entrepreneurs and techies. This world of entrepreneurship, like once you go towards that kind of position, then you really deal with this novelty, but it's really constrained. There are ways to go around. There are ways to navigate the system so that you reach a position. It's actually like you want to become an executive. There's ways. There's legal means to do that. There's legal containers for that activity. You can do a startup. You can do a company. You can do a for-profit and register it, and then you have the container to be able to manage resources, to enter in that level, to like go for like setting up infrastructures for revenue, increase margins of profit, like this economic modeling that you can use. This like you can cost analysis. You can do all the right stuff. You can learn it, and then you execute and create the structure where execution is possible, and then you have a lot of power in the world, and then you get higher in the position, and then that's it. But this has not been the high status position of power always, and it's not gonna be in the future. And the thing is, like, there's shifts in what is even considered to be this kind of position of status. And this is actually a layer of power even above, where you can set what is being what is the consensus for what is being thought of as legitimate in the first place. And in fact, there are, let's say, people who are in positions of power to. This sounds like a kind of like puppet mastery, Illuminati kind of thing, but it's not about that. It's about that there is there's levels of power, and then um, there's people who are in that level of power, and it looks a little bit different. Here's in fact where a historian and intellectual such as Coleridge or such as Adam Smith, let's take Adam Smith when it comes to the example that just gave, that are dead, that throughout their life have actually struggled with legitimacy, where their ideas might have been a little misheard, like people such as so many examples in intellectual history, like Charles Sanders Peirce, the logician and semiotician. Like he was really struggling. He couldn't get a position in academia. He was constantly excommunicated. He didn't live a really comfy life. Boltzmann, he actually committed suicide because he was not being understood. Yet these folks have much more power than any fucking like highfalutin, like narcissistic hustler kind of the CEO or anything that you see right now, like in your kind of Spotify podcast feed or anything. Completely different level. Because it has effects that are historically, like, like, for example, Aristotle or Jesus. Like this is where this is where we're actually talking power, and not in a different kind of power, and even one that is not about social control directly. It's one that just reconfigures the world so fundamentally, and then there's other power structures that come on top to just capitalize on that. Then we see coercion happening. Which is a whole other parenthesis if there's really coercion when it comes to that level. But anyway, the point is, there's to really make this connection, to go from all the way up to all the way down, to all the way to articulation to material agency. This is about an alignment of forms of power that is really rare. You don't see it. You see people operating on some kind of middle layers and gain legitimacy, but if you want to really affect real change, you need to be able to, as a person or as a community or as a group of people or as a culture, to reach all the way down and then up again, and just make this kind of kundalini like axis mundi alignment between these different levels of execution, tactic, protocol, and law, just meaning a narrative, and then just being an articulation itself. And I realized that even personally, when I'm thinking going into these high levels, I actually think I'm way more stupid than I was like some years ago in terms of mental capacity. I'm just retarded now. I feel I've reached points like I stumbled across essays that I was reading when I was 19, 20, and they're like, and I'm not surprised actually, but I'm just more like surprised by like what did I lose something? That's when it's like did I lose something fundamental I didn't even realize? Which is really, 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 really concerning. It's really deeply disturbing to have that kind of realization. It feels like you commit a sin, a crime against the cosmos. Like it's like I don't know how to deal with that. But anyhow, the thing is that even that state there is really hard like to have power, to have any kind of effect. Then I focused more on the slower levels and things started changing for the better and having able to have agency. But now figure out that there's work that can be done that is about a little bit more meta, that is not about operating on a certain kind of level and raising yourself in a hierarchy, which in itself it is artificial because it has been set by a historical precedent, by probably somebody who people were reading, who the lawmakers were reading, who the managers and the coordinators and the government officials were reading, in which the middle class and the workers and the consumers were reading. So there's a more meta layer where alignment can be achieved, and I'm wondering how can that be done? If I figure out, I will not let you know because you will find out.